It doesn't blink at landmines, it doesn't slow down for ambushes, and it sure as hell doesn't care about rough terrain. This isn't just a military truck, it's a battlefield survivor, born in blood, built with steel, and designed to keep rolling no matter what hits it. The strongest military truck ever built doesn't just carry troops, it carries hope. Through explosions, gunfire, and the worst terrain on Earth. Meet the beast, the Oshkosh MATV. The mine-resistant ambush protected all-terrain vehicle. Doesn't sound flashy, right? But this thing is the pit bull of military trucks. Compact, armored, mean, and unstoppable. Built by Oshkosh Defense, the MATV was created to answer one brutal question. How do you keep troops alive when the enemy owns the road? The answer wasn't more firepower, it was more protection and mobility that didn't stop where the pavement did. It weighs in at 25,000 pounds empty, fully loaded with gear and personnel that can stretch well past 30,000, but it's not slow. The MATV runs a Caterpillar C 77.2-liter turbocharged diesel, pushing out 370 horsepower and over 925 pound-feet of torque. That may not sound like much in sports car numbers, but when you're pulling armor, ballistic glass, run-flat tires, and V-shaped blast deflectors, that torque becomes your lifeline. And that V-shaped hull, that's what changed the game. The MATV was designed specifically to deflect blasts from IEDs, the #1 killer of troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. Most military vehicles used to absorb the impact. The MATV redirects it. Explosions hit the underside and the shockwaves are thrown outward, away from the cabin. It doesn't make you invincible, but it gives you a fighting chance. And that's all soldiers ask for. Let's talk about the suspension. Most armored vehicles ride like tanks, not this one. Oshkosh's proprietary TAK4i independent suspension gives the MATV an edge over every terrain. Loose sand, jagged rock, snow, wet jungle, it doesn't matter. The system adjusts in real time, giving up to 20 inches of wheel travel and keeping traction on surfaces where most rigs would spin out or roll over. It rides high, it rides tough, and it rides steady, even when the road is a war zone. And this truck doesn't stop. Even if you hit a tire with gunfire, it keeps moving, thanks to full run-flat inserts and a central tire inflation system. Even if the suspension takes damage, the truck can limp out under its own power. The armor plating? It's scalable. Need more protection for a high-threat mission? Bolt it on. Need to stay light and fast? Strip it back. Everything's modular and everything's replaceable. That's what makes it strong. Not just its toughness, but its ability to adapt and stay in the fight. Inside the cab, it's all business. Seating for 5, shock-mounted floors, blast-resistant seats, and harness points for weapons and comms gear. There's no leather, no comfort features, just steel, switches, and survival. The visibility? Surprisingly solid for an armored vehicle. Bulletproof glass gives the crew a 360-degree field of view, and hatches give gunners a top-out position for mounted weapons. The gunner turret can be fitted with a .50 caliber grenade launcher or remote-operated system depending on the mission. And it's not just used by the US Army. The MATV has been deployed by Special Operations units, Marines, Navy SEALs, and dozens of foreign militaries. It's seen action in every brutal corner of the world. Not just deserts and mountains, but cities, jungles, snowfields, and flood zones. Anywhere troops need to go where the enemy's waiting, this truck leads the charge. The wild part, it can fit in a C-130 Hercules, making it one of the few truly deployable heavy trucks in the US arsenal. It rolls off the aircraft, fires up, and drives straight into the mission zone. And if it gets hit, if the frame gets warped or the drivetrain cracked, field teams can swap out modules and get it back in the fight in under 24 hours. It's like a Lego tank, only deadlier. The MATV isn't a weapon, it's a wall, a moving wall of steel that keeps troops alive when nothing else can. Whether it's absorbing a roadside bomb, bashing through a barricade, or pushing through a hail of gunfire to rescue a pinned down unit, it never backs down. It doesn't look pretty, it doesn't look fast, but it looks exactly like what it is. The strongest military truck ever built. The MATV doesn't operate in ideal conditions. It thrives in the worst ones. Flash floods, rocket attacks, streets lined with IEDs. Wherever the fight is dirtiest, this truck is already rolling through it. Soldiers call it the shield, not because it's invincible, but because it takes the hits. When bullets are flying and explosions go off under the frame, the MATV doesn't swerve. It stays the course and keeps its crew alive. In Afghanistan, they called it the mountain goat, because while heavier vehicles got stuck or flipped on steep switchbacks, the MATV crawled right up. Its advanced suspension didn't just absorb impacts, it outmaneuvered ambushes. In one operation, a convoy was cut off by a rock slide, leaving no exit route. The MATVs climbed a 30-degree incline over loose shale with full payloads, carrying wounded troops out while under sniper fire. No other vehicle in the convoy could make that climb. In Iraq, they were the frontliners. Route clearance teams would send in MATVs ahead of heavy armor to check for IEDs. And yes, some got hit, some took direct blasts, but instead of folding like Humvees or older MRAPs, the crew survived. Cracked windshields, torn fenders, rattled bones, but alive. The trucks were hauled back to base, patched, rewelded, and sent back out the next day. And this wasn't rare. Field units tell stories of MATVs returning from missions with holes in their doors, shrapnel still lodged in the armor, tires barely holding on. One truck even came back with a destroyed front end after a suicide bomber detonation. And it still rolled under its own power. That's not luck, that's strength by design. The armor package isn't just slapped on, it's a combination of steel, composite plating, and advanced ceramics designed to absorb impact and redirect explosive energy away from the occupants. Every inch of the MATV is shaped and angled with intent. Deflect bullets, channel blasts, and reduce shrapnel spray. Even the undercarriage is shaped to throw explosive force outward, not upward. It's what's kept thousands of soldiers alive, and it's not all brute force. The MATV is loaded with battlefield tech. Modern versions are equipped with Blue Force tracker, encrypted radios, thermal imaging, ECM jammers to disrupt IED triggers, and weapon systems operated via joystick from inside the cab. A truck like this doesn't just protect, it fights back. Drivers can shift power between wheels, raise and lower tire pressure for traction, and call in air support, all without leaving the cab. Training to drive one? Not easy. The vehicle responds like a truck, but moves like a tank. You need to understand its weight transfer, torque curve, and braking distance under different loads. But once you do, it becomes an extension of the soldier. Drivers say the MATV talks to you, the way it hums under strain, the way it leans on rough terrain, the sound of armor flexing under heat. You don't just steer it, you listen to it. And for all its armor and size, it's surprisingly fast. On open terrain, the MATV can hit over 100 kilometers per hour. That's no small feat for a 13-ton brick of steel and ceramic. But speed isn't about thrill, it's about extraction. Getting a wounded unit out of the kill zone in minutes, not hours. Evading a second ambush, making it to the rendezvous when everything else is falling apart. The MATV doesn't win races, it wins minutes. And that's everything in combat. And while the original MATV was designed for the Middle East, newer variants are cold weather and jungle capable. They've been deployed in Africa, Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, even Arctic training zones in Alaska. Wherever new threats emerge, the MATV adapts. Swap out armor for different calibers, mount new weapon systems, add tech as needed. The truck doesn't care what country it's in, it just wants a mission. Oshkosh continues to update the platform with new drive-by-wire systems, hybrid drive options, and autonomous capability for convoy operations. But at its core, the MATV is still the same beast. Get the troops in, get them out, and take the hit if necessary. It's not built to look pretty, it's built to get dirty, stay bloody, and come back. And when the mission's over, when the crew rolls back into base covered in dust and heat and noise, they climb down from the MATV knowing it did its job. It took the blast, it soaked the bullets, it carried them home. That's more than a truck, that's a legend with wheels. The MATV doesn't need speed, luxury, or headlines. It needs a target, a crew, and a reason to roll. In a world where the battlefield shifts by the hour, one thing stays the same. The strongest military truck ever built doesn't flinch, doesn't break, and doesn't stop. It survives, adapts, and protects, mile after brutal mile. Because some machines aren't just made tough, they're made for war.